The Price of Tomorrow, Part 1, First Contact in the Void. The storage compartment of Outpost Station 47 smelled like recycled air and old coffee. Commander Jensen Rhodes stood at the viewport, watching the unfamiliar constellations of the Carina sector shimmer against the void. 3 years of routine patrols had taught him that space was mostly empty and boring, until it wasn't. "Commander, we're picking up an unusual energy signature," Lieutenant Reza called from her monitoring station. "It's not matching any known configurations in our database." Rhodes moved to the holographic display, studying the pulsing red anomaly. "Distance? About 12 kilometers from the station." "Sir." Reza hesitated. "It's growing stronger." The energy signature expanded across the screen, and Rhodes felt the familiar tension in his shoulders, the one that had kept him alive through a decade of military service. "Sound General Quarters. I want all defense systems online." But what emerged from the swirling energy wasn't a warship or known hostile craft. It was a small shuttle, its hull scarred with plasma burns and trailing debris. The vessel's design was unlike anything in Earth's database. "Life signs?" Rhodes asked, already moving toward the airlock. "One, but it's faint. And sir, it's not human." Rhodes suited up personally for the rescue operation. Standard protocol dictated that unknown alien vessels should be quarantined and reported to Earth Command, but something about this felt different. The shuttle's damage pattern suggested it had fled from combat, and recent reports of increased pirate activity in the sector made him suspect this was no coincidence. With a small team, Rhodes approached the crippled vessel. The alien pilot had managed to dock with their emergency airlock, though the maneuver had nearly torn the shuttle apart. When they cut through the sealed door, they found her. She was humanoid, but clearly alien, tall and athletic, with iridescent purple skin that seemed to shift colors in the emergency lighting. Her armor, a technological marvel of shifting plates and energy conduits, was heavily damaged. Dark fluid that Rhodes assumed was blood seeped from several wounds. Her eyes snapped open, they were completely silver, with no visible pupils. In a fluid motion that belied her injuries, she raised a weapon Rhodes had never seen before. "Easy," Rhodes said, raising his hands. "We're here to help." The alien warrior studied him, her weapon unwavering. When she spoke, her voice was melodious but strained. "You are human?" "Yes. I'm Commander Rhodes of Earth Force." "You're badly wounded." "The Void Hunters," she managed, her weapon lowering slightly. "They are coming. You must prepare." Then she collapsed, her silver eyes rolling back. Rhodes caught her before she hit the deck, noticing that despite her alien appearance, she felt remarkably human in his arms. "Med Bay, now," he ordered, already running scenarios through his head. If something had scared this clearly capable warrior enough to send her fleeing through unknown space, they needed to be ready. In the medical bay, Dr. Patel worked quickly to stabilize their unexpected guest. "Fascinating," she muttered, studying readings Rhodes couldn't begin to interpret. "Her cellular structure is remarkably adaptive. These wounds should have been fatal, but she's already healing. Can you wake her?" Rhodes asked, aware that time might be critical. "I wouldn't recommend Dr. Patel began, but the alien warrior was already stirring. "Where?" She tried to sit up, then winced. "You're safe," Rhodes assured her. "I'm Commander Rhodes. Can you tell us your name?" She touched a symbol on her armor, and a holographic display appeared. "I am Nixera, last surviving member of the Kethari High Guard. And if you truly wish to help me, Commander, you must listen carefully. What follows me will destroy everything in its path, your outpost, your people, everything." Rhodes studied her face, seeing not just fear but determination. Whatever she was running from, she hadn't given up fighting it. "Tell me everything," he said, pulling up a chair. In that moment, as Nixera began to explain about the Void Hunters and their devastating new bioweapon, Rhodes knew his life and the lives of everyone on Station 47 were about to change forever. The story he was about to hear would challenge everything he thought he knew about humanity's place in the galaxy, and force him to make decisions that would ripple across the stars themselves. Trust among stars. The holographic star map hovered between Rhodes and Nixera, casting ethereal blue light across the briefing room. She moved with measured grace despite her injuries, pointing to a cluster of systems near the galactic rim. The Void Hunters began their attacks here, she explained, her silver eyes reflecting the holographic stars. At first, we thought they were simple raiders. We were wrong. Rhodes studied the tactical display, noting the pattern of destroyed colonies and outposts. They're methodical. Each attack brings them closer to populated sectors. They aren't just destroying colonies, Nixera's voice hardened. They're harvesting genetic material. My people, the Kethari, were among the first they targeted. We're natural shapeshifters, our biology adapts quickly to new environments. Dr. Patel, who had insisted on staying for the briefing, leaned forward. That's why you're healing so rapidly. Your cellular structure is exactly what they want, Nixera finished. They're developing a weapon, a virus that can rewrite genetic code. But they needed a template, a foundation. My people provided that unwillingly. Lieutenant Reza burst into the room, her dark eyes wide. Commander, long-range sensors are picking up multiple signatures. They match the energy readings from Nixera's shuttle. Rhodes moved to the tactical display. How many? 3 vessels, all larger than anything we've encountered before. They'll reach us in 6 hours. Nixera's expression darkened. Harvester ships. Each one carries enough of their bioweapon to transform an entire planet's population. Transform into what? Dr. Patel asked. Slaves. Soldiers. Whatever the Void Hunters desire. The virus doesn't just kill, it rewrites neural pathways, creating perfect, obedient troops from their victims. Rhodes felt the weight of command settling heavily on his shoulders. Station 47 wasn't built for this kind of confrontation. They had basic defenses, a small complement of fighters, and a crew trained for routine patrols, not war with an advanced alien threat. We need to contact Earth Command, Lieutenant Reza suggested. No time, Nixera interjected. By the time your reinforcements arrive, the hunters will have already deployed their weapon. But... She hesitated, studying Rhodes carefully. There might be another way. She removed a crystal from her armor, its surface shifting with complex patterns. This contains the location of a hidden Kethari colony. Survivors, scientists, warriors, those who escaped the first wave. They've been working on a countermeasure to the virus. Why tell us this? Rhodes asked. Your people have every reason to distrust humans. Nixera's silver eyes met his. Because you saved me when you had no reason to. Because in all my years of fighting, I've learned that trust must start somewhere. She placed the crystal in his hand. And because if we don't stand together, the Void Hunters will destroy us all. The next few hours were a blur of activity. Rhodes split his crew between preparing the station's defenses and analyzing the data from Nixera's crystal. Dr. Patel worked furiously to understand the biological aspects of the threat they faced, while Lieutenant Reza coordinated with the station's small fighter wing. The colony is here, Nixera showed them, highlighting a system hidden within a dense nebula. A 3-day journey, if your ships are fast enough. And the countermeasure? Dr. Patel asked. A virus of our own. One that targets the hunter's genetic modifications while leaving natural life forms unharmed. But it's not complete, we need more time. Rhodes made his decision. Reza, prep the fighters. We'll draw their attention while a small team takes our fastest ship to the colony. He turned to Nixera. I'm trusting you. If you're wrong about this. I understand the risk you're taking, she said softly. My people have a saying, trust is the bridge between stars. Today, we build that bridge. As they prepared for departure, Rhodes received an emergency transmission from Earth Command. He stared at the orders on his screen, unknown alien vessel detected. Station 47 ordered to detain all non-human life forms for questioning. No exceptions. Rhodes looked through the viewport at Nixera, who was helping his crew modify their weapons to better combat the hunters. In that moment, he realized that sometimes the right choice meant disobeying orders. He deleted the transmission. The station's alarms began blaring. "Commander." Reza's voice was urgent. "The harvester ships, they're accelerating. We have less than an hour." Rhodes watched the massive vessels approaching on the tactical display, their dark hulls seeming to absorb the starlight. They were about to either save humanity or doom it, and the line between those outcomes was as thin as trust between former enemies. "All hands," he announced ship-wide, battle stations. "Today, we make history, or we become it." The lights dimmed to combat settings, and Rhodes could feel the station's weapons powering up. Beside him, Nixera checked her rebuilt weapon, her silver eyes gleaming with determination. The time for doubt was over. The real test of trust was about to begin. The hidden colony. The nebula swirled around their ship like cosmic silk, its purple and green gases creating an ever-shifting maze. Rhodes piloted their vessel manually. Automated systems couldn't handle the dense particle fields that had kept the Kethari colony hidden for so long. "Port thrusters, 3 degrees," Nixera guided from the co-pilot's seat. Her wounds had mostly healed, leaving only faint marks on her iridescent skin. "The entrance is camouflaged within that gas pocket." Behind them, Dr. Patel monitored the ship's radiation shields while maintaining contact with Station 47. Lieutenant Reza had stayed behind to coordinate the defense, and her last report had been grim. The harvester ships were systematically testing the station's defenses, probing for weaknesses. There, Nixera pointed to what looked like a solid wall of gas. "Cut main engines and drift forward on maneuvering thrusters only." As they approached, the nebula seemed to part, revealing a massive asteroid field. But these weren't natural formations, they were ships, hundreds of them, powered down and modified to mimic space debris. A perfect hiding place for refugees. "Impressive," Rhodes murmured. "Your people built all this while running from the hunters." "Survival breeds innovation," Nixera replied. "The Kethari were once peaceful explorers. The hunters taught us to be warriors instead." A signal pulsed from the largest asteroid, and a docking bay materialized as holographic camouflage dropped away. Rhodes guided their ship inside, where armed Kethari warriors immediately surrounded them. "Stand down," Nixera commanded in her native tongue. "They're allies." The colony's interior was a marvel of adaptive engineering. The Kethari had transformed the asteroid's natural caverns into a self-sustaining habitat, with hydroponics gardens providing food and oxygen. But Rhodes could see the strain of long-term hiding in the faces of the refugees they passed. They were led to a central chamber where a council of Kethari elders waited. Among them stood a figure that made even Nixera bow slightly, Arch-Scientist Vexthor, architect of the countermeasure virus. "You bring humans to our sanctuary," the Arch-Scientist's voice was deep, resonating oddly in the chamber. "Explain." As Nixera recounted their story, Rhodes studied the laboratory behind the council. Massive displays showed genetic sequences he couldn't begin to understand, while containment units held samples of what he assumed was the hunter's bioweapon. "The humans fought beside me," Nixera concluded. "Their outpost even now holds back the hunters, buying us time. They deserve our trust." Vexthor's eyes, silver like Nixera's but ringed with gold, fixed on Rhodes. "And what would humans do with our countermeasure, Commander? Your species has a history of turning defensive weapons into offensive ones." With respect, Rhodes stepped forward, "We don't have time for philosophical debates. The hunters are testing Station 47's defenses right now. Once they break through, they'll find this place. We need solutions, not suspicion. Dr. Patel spoke up, displaying data from her analysis of Nixera's wounds. Your cellular regeneration is remarkable. If we combine that with human immune responses. She looked at Vexthor. Together, we might perfect your countermeasure faster than either species could alone. The chamber erupted in argument, but Rhodes noticed something on one of the lab displays, a pattern he recognized from tactical training. Wait, he moved closer to the screen. These genetic sequences, they're not random. They're following a military targeting protocol. Vexthor's expression changed. Explain. The virus doesn't just transform its victims, it's coordinating them, like a battlefield network. But every network has vulnerabilities. If we could disrupt the command sequence, we could turn their own weapon against them, Nixera finished, her eyes brightening with understanding. The arch-scientist studied them both for a long moment. Finally, he nodded. Perhaps there is wisdom in new perspectives. Come, we have much work to do, and little time. As they moved into the lab, an alert sounded. Dr. Patel checked her communicator, her face paling. Station 47 reports multiple breaches. The hunters have deployed boarding parties. Rhodes met Nixera's gaze. They both knew what that meant. The station's crew would fight bravely, but against the hunters' bioweapon, they didn't stand a chance. How long to complete the countermeasure? He asked Vexthor. With your insights, perhaps 12 hours. Station 47 doesn't have 12 hours, Nixera said quietly. Rhodes felt the weight of command again, heavier than ever. They needed more time, but the only way to get it would mean sacrificing the very people they were trying to save. Breaking protocol. The laboratory hummed with activity as human and Cathari scientists worked side by side. Dr. Patel had integrated seamlessly with Vexthor's team, her expertise in human immunology proving invaluable. But Rhodes couldn't focus on their progress, his thoughts kept returning to Station 47 and its crew. Another distress signal, Dr. Patel reported grimly. The hunters have taken the lower decks. Lieutenant Reza has fallen back to the command center with surviving personnel. Nixera approached, her silver eyes reflecting the lab's harsh lighting. You're planning something. I can see it in your expression. Rhodes nodded slowly. The station's quantum communication array, it's powerful enough to reach the entire sector. If we could deliver a prototype of the countermeasure through the array's carrier wave. A broadcast infection, Vexthor interrupted, moving closer. Ingenious, but incredibly dangerous. An untested version of the countermeasure could be devastating to both sides. We don't need a perfect version, Rhodes argued. Just something strong enough to disrupt their neural network. Give the station's crew a fighting chance. The arch-scientist manipulated several holographic displays, genetic codes swirling between his fingers. Perhaps, a targeted burst. Something that would temporarily disable their command structure without permanent effects. How long? Rhodes asked. 2 hours to synthesize a basic variant. But someone would need to upload it directly into the station's communication core. The hunters will have cyber defenses in place. Nixera's expression hardened. I'll go. My ship stealth systems dash. No, Rhodes cut her off. You're needed here to complete the final version. I'll go. Commander, Dr. Patel protested, that's suicide. Even if you reach the station dash. I'm not abandoning my crew. Rhodes checked his weapon. Besides, I know Station 47 systems better than anyone. I can get to the comm array. A tense silence filled the laboratory. Finally, Vexthor nodded. We'll need a distraction. Something to draw their attention from the communication core. The station's antimatter containment pods, Dr. Patel suggested. A controlled breach in one of the secondary units would force them to redirect resources. Over the next hour, they prepared. The Kethari provided Rhodes with adaptive armor similar to Nyxera's, modified to interface with human biology. Dr. Patel programmed the prototype countermeasure into a quantum data core small enough to fit in his palm. As Rhodes prepared to board a modified stealth shuttle, Nyxera approached. "Your species continues to surprise me," she said softly. "This level of sacrifice for others." "It's not sacrifice," Rhodes replied. "It's duty. To my crew, to Earth, and now to your people too. We're in this together." She touched his arm, and he felt a strange resonance through the adaptive armor. "Then take this," she removed a crystal from her own armor and pressed it into his hand. "It contains a fraction of my genetic pattern. If you're exposed to their weapon, it might buy you time." The journey back to Station 47 was tense. Rhodes watched through the stealth shuttle's viewers as he approached, seeing the once pristine station now scarred and transformed. Dark growths of alien technology had spread across its hull like metallic infections. "Commander Rhodes, to any surviving station personnel," he broadcast on a secure channel. "I'm approaching with a countermeasure. Stand by for execution of Protocol Omega." Lieutenant Reyes's voice came back, strained but determined. "Commander, they're inside the command center. We can't hold much longer. Just give me 10 minutes, Lieutenant. 10 minutes to reach the comm array." Rhodes docked at a maintenance airlock, using his command codes to bypass security. The station's corridors were nightmare versions of what he remembered. Organic-looking modifications covered the walls, and the air itself felt wrong. He encountered his first transformed crew member near the auxiliary control room, a security officer whose skin had turned gray and metallic, eyes now glowing with an unnatural purple light. The officer raised a weapon, but Rhodes was faster, his enhanced armor allowing him to dodge and incapacitate without killing. These were still his people, he reminded himself. If the countermeasure worked, they could be saved. The communication core was 3 decks up. As he fought his way closer, Rhodes activated the antimatter containment breach. Alarms blared throughout the station, and he felt the deck plates shudder beneath his feet. 5 minutes, he muttered, pressing forward. "Just give me 5 minutes." The last stand at Proxima. The communication core of Station 47 pulsed with an eerie purple glow. The Hunter's technology had already begun infiltrating its systems. Rhodes worked quickly, his fingers flying over the controls while keeping one eye on the sealed door behind him. "Commander," Lieutenant Reyes's voice crackled through his comm, "they've breached the final barricade." "We're..." Static interrupted her transmission. The quantum data core felt heavy in his hand as he interfaced it with the station's systems. Lines of alien code flashed across his screen, the Hunter's cyber defenses actively fighting his attempts to upload the countermeasure. A massive impact shook the station. Through the viewport, Rhodes saw one of the harvester ships moving closer, its dark hull seeming to absorb the starlight. They knew what he was trying to do. Core interface at 60%, the station's AI reported. "Warning, hostile code detected. System corruption imminent." The door behind him exploded inward. 3 transformed crew members entered, their bodies twisted by the Hunter's weapon into something both organic and mechanical. Rhodes recognized one of them as Chief Engineer Patel, Dr. Patel's brother. "I'm sorry," Rhodes whispered, raising his weapon. The enhanced armor allowed him to move faster than normal human reflexes, but the transformed crew were equally enhanced. A blast caught him in the shoulder, burning through the armor's outer layer. Core interface at 80%. Rhodes felt a burning sensation spreading from his wound, the Hunter's weapon trying to transform him. Nyxera's crystal pulsed against his chest, its stored genetic pattern fighting the infection. More transformed crew were approaching. He could hear them in the corridors, their movements unnaturally synchronized. The neural network was coordinating them, just as he'd theorized. Core interface complete. "Execute Protocol Omega," Rhodes commanded, his voice strained. "Broadcast on all frequencies." The station's quantum array hummed to life, sending the countermeasure virus through every communication channel. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the transformed crew members stopped, their purple eyes flickering. Chief Engineer Patel stumbled, letting out a very human sound of confusion. "It's working," Rhodes breathed, watching as the organic mechanical modifications began to recede from their bodies. But his relief was short-lived. The Harvester ships responded immediately, their massive weapons powering up. They couldn't allow the countermeasure to spread. "All station personnel," Rhodes broadcast, fighting through the pain of his own partial transformation, "evacuate immediately. Get to the escape pods." The station shuddered as the first Harvester beam struck. Structural alerts blared throughout the complex. Rhodes made his way to the command center, helping confused and recovering crew members as he went. Through it all, Nyxera's crystal continued to pulse, keeping the transformation at bay. But he could feel it weakening. "Commander." Lieutenant Reza emerged from the command center, supporting another crew member. Her skin was still mottled with metallic patches, but her eyes were clear. "The countermeasure." "No time," Rhodes cut her off. "Get everyone to the evacuation points. I'll hold them off from here." "But Sir Dash." "That's an order, Lieutenant." As his crew evacuated, Rhodes activated the station's defense grid. It wouldn't be enough to stop the Harvesters, but it might buy time. He sent a final transmission to the Kethari colony. "Countermeasure deployed successfully. Station compromised. Requesting immediate support for evacuees at these coordinates." The response came from Nyxera herself, "Hold position, Commander. We're coming." Through the command center viewport, Rhodes watched as 3 Harvester ships surrounded the station, their weapons charging for a final strike. The transformed technology covering the station's walls was already beginning to fail, the countermeasure destroying it systematically. His own transformation had stopped progressing, but the pain was intense. Nyxera's crystal was nearly depleted. The first Kethari warships emerged from the nebula just as the Harvesters opened fire. Beyond the stars. The battle for Station 47 lit up the sector like a newborn star. Kethari warships, their advanced technology no longer hidden, engaged the Harvester vessels with devastating precision. Rhodes watched from the command center, fighting waves of pain as Nyxera's crystal continued its losing battle against his transformation. "Kethari fleet, this is Commander Rhodes," he transmitted, his voice rough. "The station's structural integrity is failing. Focus your attacks on the Harvester nearest to the evacuation routes." "Understood, Commander," Vexthor's voice responded. "Nyxera's strike team is boarding through auxiliary docking port 7. Hold position." The station shuddered as another Harvester beam struck. Emergency force fields flickered and failed throughout the complex. Rhodes checked the evacuation status. 90% of surviving crew had reached escape pods or rescue vessels. His tactical display showed the battle unfolding. The Kethari ships moved with incredible coordination, their weapons specifically calibrated to penetrate Harvester defenses. The countermeasure virus continued to spread through communication channels, disrupting the Hunter's neural network wherever it reached. The command center door opened, and Nyxera entered with her strike team. She took one look at Rhodes and moved quickly to his side. "You're transforming," she said, examining his wound. "But slower than normal." "My genetic pattern helped." Rhodes managed a weak smile. "Bought enough time. The crew, most of them are recovering. The countermeasure worked. And now we get you out of here." She gestured to her team. "The final version is ready. Dr. Patel completed the synthesis just before we launched." One of her warriors administered the improved countermeasure. Rhodes felt immediate relief as the transformation began to reverse. Outside, the battle reached its climax as the largest Harvester ship erupted in a massive explosion. "Commander," a Kethari warrior called out, "we're detecting power fluctuations in the station's reactor core. The containment fields are failing. Time to go, Nixera helped Rhodes to his feet. Your crew needs their commander. They made their way through the dying station, past walls where the hunters' biomechanical modifications were dissolving into inert matter. The improved countermeasure was spreading rapidly now, transmitted through both the station's systems and the Kethari fleet's weapons. As they reached Nixera's ship, the final harvester vessel attempted to flee. 3 Kethari warships caught it in a crossfire, their weapons delivering the countermeasure directly into its systems. The massive ship's lights flickered and died, its transformation technology failing catastrophically. From the safety of Nixera's bridge, Rhodes watched as Station 47's reactor finally breached. The explosion marked the end of his command, but also the beginning of something new. The hunters will return, Nixera said quietly, standing beside him. This was only their forward fleet. Then we'll be ready, Rhodes replied. Together. In the days that followed, as rescue operations continued and the countermeasure spread through known space, changes came swiftly. Earth Command, faced with irrefutable evidence of the hunters' threat, formally allied with the Kethari. Research teams from both species began working on advanced defensive technologies, combining human innovation with Kethari biological engineering. Rhodes, fully recovered, was offered a new command, a joint human-Kethari task force dedicated to hunting down the remaining hunter vessels and protecting vulnerable colonies. His first officer would be Nixera, whose trust in humanity had helped forge an alliance that would reshape the galaxy. Standing on the bridge of his new ship, watching human and Kethari crew working seamlessly together, Rhodes reflected on how much had changed. The war wasn't over, perhaps it was just beginning, but they faced it with something the hunters couldn't counter: unity. Ready to depart, Commander, Nixera reported, her silver eyes gleaming with anticipation. Rhodes nodded, looking out at the stars that no longer seemed quite so empty or hostile. Take us out, he ordered. We have work to do. The ship accelerated smoothly into faster-than-light travel, carrying its mixed crew toward whatever challenges awaited. The future was uncertain, but they would face it together, proof that even in the darkest times, trust and cooperation could light the way forward.